played. Now that we're in this top 4, it's about pride. These guys play for pride all day long. They want to win, and it's about the competitive spirit. Now that they're in a more natural environment for that, I'm curious if we're going to see different emotions from the players or maybe some more risk-taking.
Definitely have to see. greensheep going to open up with Jade Shaman, and Stan going to open up with the Reno Mage. Reno Mage, it depends how the decks are built. But greensheep's lineup, I believe, is built a little bit in the favor of Shaman, but these decks are actually very close. If you look at statistics from ladder play, Reno Mage versus Jade Shaman, Reno Mage has a slight edge. But a lot of times when you're playing ladder, you can't afford to play cards like Bloodlust. So that sways the matchup a little bit more into the Shaman's favor. So I definitely think that this matchup is very, very close.
Yeah, I will have to say that in my experience of piloting Reno Mage versus a more mid-range heavy Shaman build, that I have felt as though I'm under pressure most stages of the way. There's a lot more card draw in greensheep's style of build. It certainly has better endgame scaling than a typical aggro Shaman will. And I think ShtanUdachi's got his work cut out for him in this game. He's taken Corruption here early off the Cabal Courier as a nod to the heavier minions he expects greensheep to play. That doesn't mean that greensheep's going to be slow in his open by any means. But what it does mean is that it won't occur quite as often. So in this matchup, greensheep looking to press the issue and force resources from ShtanUdachi, and then afterwards capitalize by drawing extra cards and making larger minions towards later stages.
Yeah, we might see a pretty fast series as far as pace of play goes here. Both these players tend to play incredibly fast. They might slow down now just because it's starting to get towards the end of the tournament. And not only are they tired, it might take longer to make decisions, but also, more stakes on the line.
Yeah, and notice that greensheep's timing of his minions here actually makes a big difference in how ShtanUdachi's been able to play his hand. Typically, Doomsayer is one of the more powerful cards when you're facing decks that play early minions. It helps you snag back tempo and oftentimes can grab you value. In this spot, greensheep not deploying until turn 3 meant that there was no opportunity for ShtanUdachi to utilize Doomsayer. And as a result, he's gotten a lot more damage from these minions, I think, than he typically would.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. greensheep, you talked about, that early damage. This is a mid-range Jade Shaman, and it's still managing to open up with that Pyre package, pack in some weapon damage, and then start bringing in the damage with the Flame Tongue Totem.
Yeah, and this will be an interesting turn here from greensheep now that he's facing down the Doomsayer. His two major options are to use Hex or to use Jade Lightning. If he chooses to use Hex here, it means that the next very large threat that comes out from ShtanUdachi is likely to be unchecked. If he uses Jade Lightning, he gets a bit more development on the board, and he gets to clear off his Doomsayer. And so since his plan right now is simply try to occupy ShtanUdachi's resources, the Jade Lightning is usually a better suit.
Yeah, that Volcanic Potion is actually a pretty big pickup. If he didn't pick up that Volcanic Potion, greensheep had lethal.
Yeah.
With the Bloodlust. So that was definitely a good pickup. That game could have ended super fast.
Yeah, but that Jade Spirit that greensheep picked up is a nod to the rest of this build. Now that his early aggression has been stifled, that by no means means greensheep stops.
Just keeps building bigger and bigger stuff every turn. That's how it works.
That feels like the thing that Mage struggles with to me. Eventually, the scaling from Jades gets very large, and no longer do you have simply your damage spells to handle that. There's one polymorph in the deck, and the rest of the time, you're spent using Fireball or Frostbolt or Flame Strike to handle those minions. When they hit the 6/6 and the 7/7 range, Frostbolt stop handling that.
Ooh, Ginny of Zephyrs.
It's a big one. Imagine we're seeing Hex this turn. There's not a ton of big threats in ShtanUdachi's deck, and greensheep definitely can't afford to let the board snowball out of control at this point, so he's pretty much relegated to this play.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I was impressed with the most by Stan this championship, or sorry, this playoffs, was the fact that look at his road to the semifinals. Oh, yeah. He beat so many known players: Dr. Hippie, Powder, Grey J, Nyria. Lost to Pokerback in that sort of tiebreaker for the top seed, since they both ended undefeated at the end of those rounds. At the end of round 6.
It's definitely a tough field he's gone through. I mean, all the competitors in this field were tough, though. Talking 90 players qualified out of the millions who play in Europe.
It's a very small percentage.
Yeah, it's actually a smaller field than we saw in the previous year as well, where over 124 competitors were qualifying for that event.
All right, Blood Mage Lightning Storm here actually just about clears up the whole board. Greensheep's thinking about what the rest of his turn is and maybe thinking about whether or not he should totem first. I like the fact that he slowed down his play. I know that's one thing that Greensheep suffered with in the past is he grinds a lot of ladder in a lot of open tournaments. So he gets in the habit of just playing by instinct because he's trying to grind out games, get those sample sizes, get those games in, get that practice in. And so he tends to play fast just because that's how he's used to playing.
And here slowing down and realizing that using a totem rather than just playing another weapon was a better play for him. He gets rewarded. Wrath of Air totem and guarantees to clear on that board.
Guarantees instead of just a chance to clear. Could end up being a big deal. And Stan needs something here. No Ice Block, no Reno. He's got Flame Strike though.
Yeah, this isn't exactly a spectacular Flame Strike for Reno. It's fairly weak, all things considered. It's just that Greensheep has been able to keep up enough pressure that ShtanUdachi is really forced to Flame Strike in this spot.
ShtanUdachi is about a Frostbolt away from having enough damage for lethal over 2 turns. So that's also something to keep an eye on. A lot of the times when you draw like this as a mage, you're doing something right. You either have a lot of removal, a lot of threats, or a lot of burn. Oh, well, the hand's sort of like not playing itself a little bit. I guess he just has to remove. He's dead on board if he doesn't. If there was no minions on board, Blood Mage plus double Fireball face to go. If you Fireballs, you're out there. Or sorry, Frostbolts, you're out there.
I was like, how many Fireballs can he back in the deck?
Like 6.
Yeah, this is a really tough spot, though. None of his options seem incredibly appealing, and rather than kill both minions on board and sacrifice another valuable piece of removal, he's simply electing to take this damage, and that's going to end the game.
That's one of the fastest Reno games I think we've seen today, except for the Pirate Warrior ones. Jade Shaman, like you mentioned, George just pressures every turn it plays something. You always got to be worried about Bloodlust, and a quick win for Greensheep going into this series.
Yeah, he just was one step ahead at pretty much every single turn. There was never an AoE turn where ShtanUdachi got to actually put something behind it, and he never really had any significant tempo plays. It was simply answers, and then more answers, and then more answers. And when the board was too small, he couldn't afford to expend resources to deal with that, and that's where a lot of that damage came from.
Yeah. Greensheep asking some tough questions.
Yeah, he definitely stumped the Shtan there.
Should be a good segment for the Winter Championships. Stump the Shtan. But we're about to jump into game number 2 here in a few moments. But again, just want to talk about how their lineups match up. You know, just to give you guys something to expect going into this. Greensheep's lineup should just flat out beat Stan. Stan has greedy control lists that were designed to be Reno Mage. Greensheep has fast aggressive decks that are designed to beat decks that are designed to beat Reno Mage. So,
right. He's actually just brought Tempo Mage instead of Reno Mage. So
yeah.
While there's a Mage in Greensheep's lineup, 80% of the players brought Mage. He's one of the few who elected to bring a more aggressive focused build rather than rely on the super healing power from Reno Jackson to really top himself up. This matchup, though, really boils down to how Greensheep's is very differently built than the rest of the rogue decks that are out there. He's playing a pirate rogue deck. So his main goal is to get on the board as quickly as possible, once again, and keep the pressure so high that opponents eventually stumble and it's an opportunity for him to win. ShtanUdachi already has early removal, and he's picked up the most important card in the matchup with Reno Jackson. I think if Greensheep is going to win this game, he's going to have to get a board set up rolling into a turn where ShtanUdachi needs to play Reno.
Yeah. This list is now run Gadsden Auctioneer. It really doesn't have much oomph beyond its early aggression, so it really needs to, like you said, get off to those good starts and really push the damage and hope they have a big enough board going into the Reno turn to really close things out.
Yep. Thieves Valet here. No secrets in Greensheep's deck, so a River Crocolisk body will have to be enough.
I mean, he's got Shaku the Collector and a second Swashbuckler, so maybe he just waits for a Medivh's, a secret, so he can get the value out of Medivh's Valet.
I'd wait. Every time. I'm gonna get that secret.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just feeling it.
All it takes is drawing 2 of the remaining 24 cards left in your deck, and then from those 2 remaining cards in your deck, get like a 1 in 200
math.
Hey.
A little bit of a tough turn here for Greensheep. Not really any clean way to answer this Acolyte of Pain. And that's going to mean he just elects to yield 2 draws over to ShtanUdachi, which I'm pretty surprised by, because if you're going to give 2 draws over to Shtan anyway, I think I'd like to see him just make a push. He ends up in a very similar situation where Shtan's getting a lot of value from it. His plan is to Cold Blood this turn. Okay, well, this makes a lot more sense. If his plan is actually Cold Blood the Argent Horse Rider, he's hoping that Shtan just doesn't have a way to take care of it this turn.
Yeah, he does. He can Arcane Blast and use the ping. He even has a Babbling Book to get a minion on board. Not too bad. He hasn't even taken much damage going into the Reno turn, and sometimes the Rogue is a little bit inconsistent with how fast it gets on the ground. You know, how fast it can start dealing damage. It's not like Pirate Warrior where it just draws big weapons and then upgrades those big weapons and then starts smacking in the face. It needs to build up minions. It needs to buff up those minions with Cold Blood, and then does that consistent damage over time with dagger pokes and with these, small, annoying minions.
Yeah, and notice that Greensheep hasn't actually used his backstab so far this game. There's not really any high-value backstab targets in this matchup. He's simply been waiting for a better time to find it. And on a turn like this, where you have a fairly weak board to protect, and it's hard for you to get any real development down, this is one of the perfect turns for backstab. Now he gets to make sure his Azure Drake's uncontested, and even gets to push with the Medivh's Valet. So some very good use out of the Argent Squire. And once again, his little minions are presenting quite a problem for Shtan.
Yeah. Stan's got to be a little bit careful about the burst damage, though. Greensheep has Leroy Jenkins and Shadow Step.
Oh, yeah. It's been a while since we've seen that combo in play. I actually think the last time I saw that in competitive play was at Hammerstein by Teray.
The 2014 America's Championship.
Yeah.
Which led into BlizzCon.
Leroy Jenkins had just been changed from 4 mana to 5 mana, and he just played the exact same deck list where he used Leroy Jenkins and Shadow Step.
Yeah. And Stan's just removing everything off the board. So Greensheep's still a little bit away from being able to piece together enough damage for lethal. He can actually set up lethal this turn. So now going into turn 8 is when he has enough mana to be able to use Leroy Jenkins' Shadow Step.
I'm actually curious if he should not be playing Pillaging Tomb here in any situation. Maybe baiting or trying to bait Shtan into maybe taking a greedy turn here. With the speed that Shtan played this, I don't think that was ever actually a possibility. But, maybe from his perspective, he looks at it and goes, maybe he just can't kill me. Here, I think Greensheep needs to consider Leroy Jenkins and Shadow Step.
Just to get that mana utilization out of the way.
Yeah, you can't use them both in the same turn and play Leroy 3 times, like the days of yore.
Like the old days.
But he does have 18 in hand, and he's got the dagger pouring over the next couple of turns. So ShtanUdachi either needs to heal himself again or find a way to actually kill Greensheep. On the other hand, with a coin in your hand, you can do it 3 times in one turn, I believe.
Yeah, you bring it back, cost 3, you bring it back, it costs 3. That's 11.
So Greensheep needs 5 more damage if he's going to pick up this game.
5 turns of dagger hits, but the Water Elemental should cut things off. And he's just going to try and get this damage in now.
Yeah, I think this is a smart call from him because Eviscerate looks like the card he needs to draw in order to win this game. And if that's the case, he's going to need that extra mana.
So if he picks up that Eviscerate, he does have enough damage for lethal. But there's a lot of damage staring back, and the dagger hit is now off. So Greensheep is pretty much on a 1-out here. ShtanUdachi is going to push a lot of damage here. Probably going to try and set up a 2-turn lethal. Yeah, he has 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage on board.
And Shtan still has draws in the deck that can actually keep him from dying this turn.
Ice Block.
Ice Barrier. Anything that heals.
Yeah, if he just...
He could even get a Firelands Portal drop that could protect him. Now, that Firelands Portal could also backfire.
The Suicide Bomb Squad.
Yeah.
Bomb Squad, I think it's called. Burglary Bully. Can Greensheep pick up the Eviscerate? Oh, he got it!
Oh my gosh, Greensheep draws the Eviscerate. Shtan has no way to protect himself.
perfect lethal with the Eviscerate.
Leroy Jenkins Shadow Step in 2017. This is unreal.
We saw Yogg Saron earlier on take a game.
And this is because greensheep chose to give those whelps over to Stan a turn earlier. If he had not done that, he wouldn't have had an opportunity to actually play this Eviscerate.
We've now seen tributes to 2014, 2015, and 2016 with some of the cards we've seen today, and Stan's gonna be stunned. I mean, no real surprise here, as we talked about, who the favorite is in this matchup, but I was gonna expect the Rogue to be the weak link in Greensheep's lineup based off of the way the decks are built, and he's able to pretty much steal a win. He set himself up perfectly for the out. I mean, you said it well. He knows that Eviscerate's his only out in the deck. He's got 2 of. And so we'll see if Greensheep can close it out. If he can 3-0 his way into the finals of the Europe Winter Playoffs, that would be pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you in your assessment, too. I think that the Rogue is definitely potentially one of the weak links in Greensheep's lineup here. With the Reno Mage deck, it looked like he was falling behind. If he runs into Reno Warlock, they have a lot more early game minions to fight with and some board clears to boot. And against the Rogue build from ShtanUdachi, if he just faces down an early Questing Adventurer or an early Edwin Van Cleef, that could spell trouble as well. But now that matchup's out of the way, the Tempo Mage deck, it's a very interesting build because it can play both sides. It doesn't necessarily need to get a blistering fast start to win because there's plenty of card draw in this deck. In the long run, it puts together a lot of burn damage and is able to just keep that pressure going turn after turn because it's drawn so many cards.
Yeah, you can be super patient in this matchup. Say if your early board gets dealt with, you aren't really pressured to start just playing out threats every turn to try and put that minion pressure on. You can hold on to those Flame Wakers. You can hold on to those cheap spells to try and couple the Flame Wakers with the cheap spells or the cheap spells with the Archmage at Tinnitus. So lots of different ways that you can win these slower matchups. And Greensheep, he has been tweeting sort of his tournament experiences so far, and he's been able to target the Rogue incredibly well. I believe, going into round 7, and I don't know his statistics beyond that, he was undefeated against Rogue, and in some of his matches, he would go down 2-0, and then 3-0 sweep the Rogue, or if his opponent played Rogue 3 times, he would just 3-0 sweep the Rogue right off the bat. So even if he may be a little bit shaky against Reno Mage, I still think the matchup's pretty good, especially with Rag and Archmage at Tinnitus.
Right. I mean, his lineup very much is meant to just simply defeat Rogue decks. And if you look at ShtanUdachi's Rogue deck, there's actually no Phantom Knives in it, and instead there's 2 Beneath the Grounds. Beneath the Grounds is very poor versus Greensheep's decks, and in addition to that, Phantom Knives happens to be pretty good against them, so that's something that he'll be missing if it comes to that matchup.
Yeah, I believe in, you can see there Greensheep's road to the semifinals. In his 2 losses in round 5 and 6 to Naria and Anaka, respectively, I think his Temple Mage got swept. I think he wasn't able to find a win with the Temple Mage. And so that's been the weak link in his lineup so far. But again, he had a plan in mind, which was to play the aggressive decks, counter Rogue in players' lineups that had Rogue, which was 66% of the field, so 2/3 of the entire field had Rogue.
Yeah, this game, it looks like he may be struggling just a little bit. He's not picking up any of his card draw effects, and while he's got Ragnaros, which is one of the most powerful threats in the game versus the slower mage control builds, ShtanUdachi is just out to an insane lead where the card economy is concerned. He's taken almost no damage, and this is how strong ShtanUdachi believes the matchup is for him, or weak it is for him at this point. He's simply playing Archmage Antonitis here and says, if it gets fireballed, I'm okay with that because it skips Greensheep's turn.
It's gonna live. Unless he hits all 3 shots from the Arcane Missiles and uses Frostbolt, it's gonna live. So, well, time to chain some fireballs, I suppose.
Yeah, and this is where the game is going to get out of control for Greensheep. Now ShtanUdachi's rezzing some of his dead minions, and he's getting extra fireball back. So in this position, it actually is fairly weak to get the Doomsayer, I think, but at the same time, it does prevent Greensheep from being able to actually play a minion this turn. ShtanUdachi's free to just make a bunch of fireballs and take up 5 damage.
Yeah, he's got 23 damage in his hand over the course of, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 turns with just the burn spells. So if you can fit in pings, that's really all you need because...
Yeah. Plus, he's got Alexstrasza in his hand.
Yeah.
So with that extra 7 armor, it's really tough for him to just to into a strictly losing position, and Emperor Thorassan's going to unlock 18 of that damage instantly.
He can go into Alex draws on turn 9, and then with 3 fireballs in his hand, kill on turn 10.
Yeah.
So this game's pretty much locked up unless Greensheep can find a way to win.
Yeah, and that's just really not
In
in
2
his
turns.
deck. It would take some crazy string of babbling book shenanigans to really get it done.
And again, these guys are playing so fast. It's one of the fastest series of the day.
Yeah, and that's just the nature of these two guys. They let their instinct guide them through their play. To me, that's an incredibly unique thing to watch because so many players tend to be very analytical. They take a lot of time to do problem solving and try to spot some of the hidden things that you don't see if you play this fast.
They let the elephants guide them. That's what all would say.
I get it.
Also, wait,
Elements.
Adam was looking at me like I'd taken crazy pills or something. It's like TJ's gone off the rails for sure this time.
That much I know you did. So, this time I was wondering how many.
Approximately 6 crazy pills today. But yeah,
Have all the coins you want, green sheep.
doesn't matter.
They're not worth your life.
All right, ShtanUdachi is going to take game number 3. Pretty one-sided game there. Greensheep wasn't able to get off to a good early start. Never drew into some of the stuff that helps impact that matchup. Flame Wakers, cheap spells, Archmage Antonitis, explosive early starts.
The big one was the turn 2 Doomsayer from ShtanUdachi. Green sheep, he's hoping that the Mana Worm does an incredible amount of work for him. And if it goes unchecked for a turn or two, it certainly will get a lot of damage and then pull a resource down the road. ShtanUdachi simply had a tool that wouldn't have even allowed green sheep to develop if he wanted to. Takes care of the Mana Worm straight away, and smooth sailing from there. When the Tempo Mage isn't able to get ahead, and they don't have very strong responses, that is an incredibly losing spot for them.
Yeah, so Stan still has the Rogue left in his lineup, which is, again, what Greensheep's not necessarily his overall plan for targeting, but definitely something he's had a lot of success with, and something that his lineup does super well against. And, oh, here we go. Right off the bat, we're going to see ShtanUdachi try and queue up this Rogue to take a win over the Tempo Mage.
One of those very poor draws in ShtanUdachi's deck. Now, the one benefit is if Green Sheep is playing strictly a responsive game, that the ambushes actually could make an impact at some point. If the game gets very grindy on resources, that extra 4/4 could really come in handy. But he's already invested a card to get to that point, if that's his game plan, and Green Sheep opens up with a ton of ways to handle early pressure.
And a big thing about this matchup is who's on the coin. Since both of these decks have, inflated win rates when on the coin, whoever's on the coin already has an innate advantage in the matchup.
Yeah.
And then Tempo Mage has a natural advantage in the matchup.
Yeah, Rogue, of course, with the coin, it allows you to make some tempo plays that aren't normally available to you if you don't have them. An ambush gets drawn straight away. Look at Green Sheep's face.
Yikes.
Well, that does make this a lot tougher.
That was the fastest Nerubian of the bunch. Crawl his way up the deck that quickly.
Thank you.
All right, well, ShtanUdachi gonna.
Yeah, and this is where things can get really tough for Green Sheep. He's pretty much relegated to a Frostbolt turn here in some capacity. He's going to choose to take the risk here.
All right, well, it's actually pretty likely that he clears off these 2 minions. With the coin on the board, all he had to do was pretty much hit one of the minions once, and he had over a 75% chance to get it.
It's definitely worth the risk because if Green Sheep just decides to bide his time and take a safe route with it, he's never getting ahead of the matchup. And that's really the important part for him, is to get ahead and stay ahead. So with the Flamewaker risk there, if he fails, he gives up his Flamewaker. But if he succeeds, it's going to force something from ShtanUdachi. In this case, that's a sap, and that's great news for Green Sheep. It likely means ShtanUdachi does not have a way to reload and doesn't have Eviscerate.
Yeah, this is actually going to be a pretty big turn for ShtanUdachi, whether or not he thinks that he can go for the questing adventure. And he actually is going to go for it. I can imagine he's going to use, I don't even know if it's worth using the coin. That's such a terrible hand it's a terrible Shtan hand.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to use the coin here. He's already seen the single copy of Forgotten Torch. He's already seen a Frostbolt. And if it's Fireball that's going to take care of it, it doesn't matter what the size of the questing adventure is at that point. If it's anywhere under 6, Fireball kills it.
Greensheep can't kill it. Unless
can't.
both of these Flamewaker shots from the mirror image.
But he can protect the Flamewaker, and that's also very scary for ShtanUdachi. Not to mention ShtanUdachi's going very low on resources at this point, so it's gonna be tough for him to claw his way back into this game. With just Leroy and Backstab, this needs to be a big draw.
Swashbuckler.
Thinking Flame Strike.
Flame Strike. Take a coin, Flame Strike.
Well,
That's the second time in a row.
now he's just got to find Shaku or the other Swashbuckler and pick up a secret to go along with it.
This game's rigged.
I'd wait for it every time.
Deja vu.
Excuse me, you
Yeah,
are...
I wouldn't have for it.
What did we say last time? You just gotta wait for the 2 and 20 from his deck. And then the 1 and 200 from the mage card.
Mage cards.
Approximately, give or take 100.
You can tell TJ really knows how to count. There's closer to 37. Much closer. Firelance Portal, and it's all down here. He'll never stand it. Gadget Auctioneer would have to just go nuts, and in addition to that, Greensheep would have to just draw dead for pretty much the rest of the game. Second counterfeit coin.
This is when you...
This really is deja vu. I mean, last game Greensheep had all the coins from Burgley.
Yeah. Well played comes out from Stan. He knows what's up.
Yeah, that's going to be Greensheep. It's a matter of time till he ends up closing this game. Stan is just completely out of gas.
If he draws exactly Gadget and Auctioneer next turn.
Even then, he's likely to be facing down something. It's tough for me to see a turn where Greensheep doesn't either deal a massive amount of damage or slam rack